I've been thinking quite a bit lately about my life and the path that I'm currently on. I've also been thinking about the way that I've changed how I view having PTSD, and it might surprise you. Now, I know this might sound crazy to you, but I don't necessarily view having PTSD as a bad thing anymore. And before you go thinking that I'm completely off my rocker, just hear me out. Sure, in the beginning of my journey with PTSD, it was awful. I suffered a lot. I was living in survival mode, and I was sleep deprived from having nightmares and panic attacks. I had flashbacks, and I was triggered all the time. I had extreme levels of anxiety, and I was afraid to leave my house because I didn't feel safe anywhere. I kept myself isolated most of the time, and sometimes it got really lonely. My life before I was diagnosed with PTSD and took some time away from work was extremely busy. Sometimes I felt like I barely had a minute to sit down and relax. I was so accustomed to being busy all the time that I felt like I didn't have time to deal with any of those traumatic experiences that I had while on the job. So whenever they came up, I would just stuff them into a metaphorical box and shut the lid and hope that that's where they would stay. I didn't have time for that, and if I kept myself busy, it meant that the lid would stay on that box and I wouldn't have to deal with all that shit that was going on in my head, because I really didn't want to face any of that stuff. And I went on like this for a long time, and it seemed to be working for me until one day that lid popped open and things started coming out of that box, and I had no choice but to face it, and I was forced to start dealing with it. But fast forward to now, and my life is completely different. I'm in a totally different headspace. I know what peace feels like. I've learned to stop criticizing and judging myself, and I've learned how to accept myself and love myself for who I am. I've learned to let go and stop worrying about what other people might think of me. And this journey with PTSD has also taken me down a spiritual path, and that's something that I'm going to talk about in other videos. I've learned that I enjoy writing, meditation, and yoga. I've learned that I'm creative. I've learned that I am valuable and I have a lot to offer to the world. And I've learned that I have a lot to be grateful for. Life is always throwing stuff at us, both good and bad. And when life threw PTSD at me, it turns out it's what I needed so that I could learn how to finally find peace within myself. It wasn't easy though. It was hard. And essentially, I had to burn my life down to the ground in order to start rebuilding so that I could build something better. Sure, I could keep viewing having PTSD as a curse, and I used to. I could be angry and resentful and blaming my employer since I was injured on the job. I could be feeling sorry for myself and acting like a victim. And I could be projecting all of those things outwards, but rather than do that, I chose to go inward and do the inner work. It was hard, and I'm not going to pretend it wasn't, but it was also very rewarding work and totally worth it. The longer we choose to remain angry and resentful, the longer our recovery will take. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have anything to be angry about or that anger is wrong. Anger is a normal, healthy emotion. What I am saying though is that we can choose to be stuck in that anger and resentment, or we can find a way to release it and let go of all of the heaviness and the darkness that we're carrying within us. And when we can find a way to release the heaviness and move out of the darkness, we are free to keep moving forward and live the life that we are meant to be living. The choice is ultimately ours. So choose wisely, my friends, because I am here to tell you that there is life after trauma. Namaste.